Well, they didn't break us with the last factoring exercise, so here they are trying again. Solve this inequality, they say. And you remember we have a procedure for this, a series of steps that's supposed to get us through it, and it begins with change the inequality as necessary so it has a zero on one side. Well, they gave us that part, so on to the next part, factor f of x. They did that for us also, so there must be some pretty vile stuff ahead if they're doing two of our steps for us. Identify the points next where each factor is zero or undefined. Okay. Well, let's start with the easy ones. X minus 2 hits 0 when x equals 2. X plus 1 reaches 0 when x is negative 1. X minus 4 hits 0 when x equals 4. And the thing we haven't dealt with before, square root x is 0 when x is 0, and it's undefined everywhere to the left of that. So we definitely have a critical point or a critical value when x is 0 that we'll have to look at. So, armed with all that, let's make a number line and populate it with all of our critical values. In order from left to right, they are minus 1, 0, 2, and 4. And we're going to look on and between each of those sets of numbers. Here's our chart. In some charts, they don't show evaluating at the numbers, but I recommend it. It's definitely helpful, especially when you have an inequality where there are sometimes discontinuities right at those numbers. It's good to know if they're defined at these points or not instead of having to guess. And the pieces we have to look at are the square root of x, x minus 2, x plus 1, and x minus 4. And once we've dealt with all of those, we'll do a grand total where we look at the behavior of the entire function, which I'll write out again. Root x, x minus 2, over x plus 1, x minus 4. Okay, so let's work our way through this. If x is lower than minus 1, the square root of x is undefined. If x is negative 1, the square root is undefined. If x is between negative 1 and 0, the square root of x is undefined. This is an unusual start, but okay. If x is 0, its square root is 0. And if x is anything positive, then its square root comes out positive. Okay. Now, x minus 2, that comes out negative for any negative value. 0 minus 2, still negative. Something like 1 minus 2, negative. 2 minus 2, 0. And for anything higher than 2, this factor will come out positive. For x plus 1, we get negative 1 plus 1 is 0, and then the positives begin. And for x minus 4, we get negative and negative and negative, negative, negative. 2 minus 4 is negative. 4 minus 4 is 0. And for anything above 4, we get to the positives. Okay, so there's all the signs of our individual factors. Now, what happens when we put them all together? For the overall expression here, we have undefined times negative divided by negative divided by negative. Well, if even one piece is undefined, then the entire thing is undefined. So these first three sections go by real fast. You can't have a defined expression if one of its pieces is a big question mark, so all of those are simply undefined. Now it finally starts to work. 0 times a negative number is 0, divided by a positive, still 0, divided by a negative, still 0. That whole thing comes out to 0. In other words, if we plugged in values for this, it would come out 0 times negative over positive times negative. The negatives cancel, not that it matters, because we have 0 over a non-zero value, so 0 for the whole thing. Next up, Positive times negative means we have a negative numerator. Positive times negative means we have a negative denominator. Negative over negative is positive. Next one, positive times 0 is 0 over positive times negative is negative. 0 divided by a negative value is 0. Positive times positive gives us a positive numerator. You may not need to do this, write this part out. I'm doing it to just show a little more detail, but maybe you are handling these in your head already. Positive over negative comes out negative. Positive times positive gives us a positive numerator. Positive times 0 gives us a 0 numerator, undefined again. We get another little blip there where the numerator is okay but the denominator is not. And finally, we get all positives, so the overall function is positive. So there's our completed sign table. And what we've been asked to find is the places where this whole expression is less than or equal to 0, meaning 0 or negative. So there's a spot, there's a spot, there's a spot where it's negative, and that's going to be it. Our solution is going to be 0 and also anything from 2 up to 4. 2 up to, but not including 4. So either x is 0, or if I was going to do this in massive detail, I would say either x is 0 or x is somewhere in the interval 0 to 2 to 4. And if you did it with inequalities, you could say either x equals 0 or 2 less than or equal to x less than 4.